Today I want to discuss Trump's speech at the Bitcoin conference in Tennessee, Nashville, I believe. And also make a comment or a critique, if you will, on the response from the quote-unquote Bitcoin community. And what I want to say is that there's a broader context, and that context is about pro-Bitcoin political figures or pro-Bitcoin politicians. And I'm going to let you know that from what I have heard from all of the supposed pro-Bitcoin politicians or pro-crypto, they'll use them interchangeably. But let's just say Bitcoin. The pro-Bitcoin politicians, they're all anti-Bitcoin. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. When people went and they responded to and summarized what Trump had said regarding Bitcoin in this speech. Now, mind you, very little of this speech, I think the speech is maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, something like that. Very little of the speech, I would say maybe 5% of the speech, has anything to do with Bitcoin or crypto. Most of it is Trump giving his stump speech, addressing his enemies and throwing stones at them. He spends about 15 minutes in the beginning basically shouting out the people who are in the audience, name dropping and whatnot. Goes on to talk about all the other things that he's done and how he's so wonderful, and then spends maybe a total of like 5 minutes on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and what he's going to do. So one, he's accepting donations in Bitcoin. He said they've raised, I believe the number was $25 million. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. But it was significant. A significant amount of money that he has collected using cryptocurrency. Okay, great. So you could see why he would show up at a conference where people who are potential donors who have this particular mode of being able to pay him. So he's pro accepting your money. Okay, so we can throw that out the window. Okay, he accepts Bitcoin. What's he going to say no to your money? The second part was that he said that the U.S. government has 210,000 Bitcoin. This is a lot of Bitcoin. This is, at today's price, I think it equals out to something like $13 billion worth of Bitcoin. And he said, we're not going to sell it. We're going to use it as the Bitcoin strategic reserve because, as they say, you never sell your Bitcoin, quoting Saylor, who he shouted out. And not just Saylor. I mean, Saylor's quoting other people. He's basically quoting the narrative of the maximalist cult. And then the last thing that he said was that he was going to go after Elizabeth Warren. He was going to fire Gary Gensler, SEC, whatnot. What's interesting about this whole thing, and it's also related to RFK Jr. getting on stage at a similar conference. I don't know whether it was a Bitcoin conference or not, but the video's out there of him getting on stage and saying that if he's elected president, the U.S. is going to buy 5 million Bitcoins, which is like $300 billion worth of Bitcoin, and use it as a strategic reserve. Basically, well, and this gets to the point. All of these people who are pro-Bitcoin, their fundamental thing and why everybody's like, oh yeah, these guys are great, they're a pro-Bitcoin politician. They're saying things that the Maxi cult believes makes the number go up. What they believe is you buy and you hold Bitcoin, you never sell it, you never use it, you never move it, you sequester it, and because it's limited in supply, the more you sequester and you're basically limiting the supply even more, the usable supply, and that this will make number go up. Well, this is very interesting if the number has any relationship to anything other than just pure speculation. Like, for instance, if the number is actually related to the value of the network, which imagine that's probably what it should be, right? Just stop for 1 second. Forget about Bitcoin. One of the biggest problems that I've seen is people get Bitcoin brain. And they think that, well, of course they would think this, listening to the Maxi narrative, that all of a sudden Bitcoin suspends the rules of economics, of nature, of human psychology, of sociology, of all of the things that we know, and that all of a sudden, when you involve Bitcoin, that all of that goes away. Which is not true. If you read the white paper, Satoshi is pointing out, he says Bitcoin works because human nature is what human nature has ever been. Read the incentive section of the white paper. But people get Bitcoin brain. Imagine someone coming to you and saying that the value of a network, and this is the same person who will quote and talk about network effect, unironically, where they'll be like, hey, listen, let me tell you the value of this network. The value of this network increases if you don't use the network. The way to make this network more valuable is not to use it. Or then to convince you 2 + 2 = 5, to try to convince you that not using the network is using the network. Because what are they talking about? They're talking about holding, hodling, not moving your coins. If you're holding your coins and not moving your coins, you are not using the network. You are literally not using the network. That's what it means. Because using the network is writing transactions to the blockchain. That is how the network is used. A blockchain is nothing else than a chain of blocks, and that chain of blocks is transactions. It is writing every block has at least one transaction written to the blockchain. That would be the Coinbase transaction. Otherwise, there's nothing. You can't have a completely empty block. That's part of the rules. So meaning to use the network, the literal definition of using the network is making transactions on the network. If you're holding, you're not making transactions on the network. There is no difference to the network between you consciously deciding not to spend your coins and you having lost your private keys and being unable to spend your coins. This is the situation with Satoshi. We can't tell whether someone has the keys. We can't tell whether the keys were permanently lost on purpose or by accident, because to the network, there's no difference between you holding and you losing your keys. In other words, not using the network. You're either using it or you're not. And for someone to tell you that the way to make a network more valuable is not to use it, or that there's an industry, Trump kept saying an industry. Imagine an industry based on a network, and the whole thing about that industry is whatever you do, don't use this network. That might be an industry, but it's not an industry of that network. It's obviously an industry of the network that you are going to use besides using that network. And we know what that is because if you look at Trump's speech and you look at behind him, the conference sponsor is a bank. Xapo Bank, a financial institution. And then it says Bitcoin next to it. This is truly 2 + 2 = 5. The first sentence of the Bitcoin white paper, the first sentence in the abstract says, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Bitcoin is a technology that makes banks irrelevant. Bitcoin is a technology that is anti-bank, meaning in the place of. If you have a Bitcoin-based industry, you don't need banks. By definition of what Bitcoin is. So, what you have is you have people standing, being literally sponsored in that standing there by banks, telling you that they are pro-Bitcoin while suggesting to you that what they are going to do and what you should do and what you should applaud them for doing is not using Bitcoin. You got to get out of the cult. You got to get out of the cult. What you could do, if you would like to get out of the cult, you know what? I'm doing another, it was so successful last month. Bitcoin Mystery School, the new curriculum, people are loving it. We've added 30 new people into our Bitcoin Mystery School group. The Telegram group is going great. It's a really good curriculum. You're going to learn all about currency, the history of it, the spiritual nature of it. You're going to learn how Bitcoin fits into the whole entire evolution of what's happened, why it's important today, and on the last day, you're going to make your own cryptocurrency to bring it all home. Right? Because it's about cryptocurrency. We're going to do it for real. This is not theory. This is practice. It's going to be the last week of August. Last week of August. Link is in the description. So please come and check that out. I'm going to be keeping up and I'll be critiquing Trump and RFK, and we'll see now the Democrats will probably do something too. But the game is afoot. get the real knowledge of what this is, whether you get it from me, whether you get it from somebody else, but I'd love to have you. So BitcoinMysterySchool.com if you'd like to come and join the next class, and I will see you next time.